I didn't put this on public until about 5 minutes ago, so I don't know if everybody has been told about that this is going to appear or not. That was because I forgot, even though I actually prepared this subject 4 days ago. Anyway, I'll just continue and try and learn what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing as time progresses. Today I'm going to talk about the deportation, or the beginning of the deportation of Jews from Berlin in 1941, and what led up to it, and the events. As far as the Nazi system was concerned, the whole thing is based, I think, on various conspiracy theories, and particularly that of some Jewish conspiracy theory. And so this is the absolute heart of what Nazism is about. Notice it's not unusual, because all sorts of people believe in conspiracies, believe in exactly the same thing. It's that we are superior, and we're only denied our better life by this lot here who are oppressing us. Now, and this is the same everywhere. It doesn't have to be this lot here being Jewish. It could be some other ethnic grouping or other people or whatever. But what's never made any sense to me is that it's how illogical the statement is if we are superior, how come these other people are able to get the better of us? So that in its very sense is already pretty ridiculous to my way of thinking. In any case, the separation of Jews from German society began in 1933. At the beginning, it was not very successful, but Hitler was patient, and so in time, with more and more laws, with more and more indoctrination, and then it happened, and it got to the stage where it got to with the Holocaust. If you go to Berlin, you can see in Oranienburgerstrasse there's a synagogue there, which former East Germany, but it's very, very attractive with its Moorish domes, and that was clearly a target for on Kristallnacht, as was another one. But there's one in a place called Levetzowstrasse, and in Levetzowstrasse, that's the avatar I used for this video. It looked like a normal building. That building, it wasn't really damaged in Kristallnacht, or wasn't damaged too badly. It was damaged more by the Royal Air Force, and in 1943, and by 1955 they couldn't do anything with it, so they pulled it down. And today there's this rather odd looking memorial to it, but it's very big though, the memorial. And not so far from there is the Moabit railway yard, and that's a place where people were deported from. So people were deported from Berlin from 3 places. One was the Grunwald station. Now, the Grunwald station is at the other end of Berlin. It's almost, if you think of what it was like after the war, Grunwald is almost in Wannsee. So it's almost at the very western edge of there. And there was another place, was the Anhalter Bahnhof, which was the main railway station. It was obviously clearly damaged during the war, but then it found itself in no man's land. And today we've only got part of the facade standing there. What was once the largest railway, I think it was the largest railway station in Europe. I might be wrong on that. Anyway, so the Levetzowstrasse Synagogue itself actually only dates to 7th of April 1914. So at the time of the Nazis, it was pretty new. So the Night of Broken Glass happened on the anniversary of the Hitler coup, or attempted coup, the putsch, beer hall putsch, and it was, I think, it's utterly clear that at the heart of it, it was people who was the former people around Hitler on that day at the very beginning. And who actually were responsible for this, and that's actually reading from the diary of Goebbels. Now, Hitler did want to, his plan, and that of Goebbels and others, was to get rid of the Jewish population somehow or other, get them out of Germany, and so it was in the flushes of victory on the Eastern Front where they decided to get rid of them from their big three cities, Berlin, Vienna, and Prague, and these were the people who had to go first. Now, it was to a large extent, I think, Goebbels who came up with the idea of using these cities first. Now, on the 17th of September 1941, Hitler approved the plan, and in a letter of the 18th of September 1941, Himmler informed Arthur Greisler, the Gauleiter of the Warthegau, so based in Poznan, Posen, it's the Führer's desire that the Third Reich and the Protectorate be cleansed of Jews as soon as possible from west to east. So I will therefore begin deporting Jews this year if possible. First to those territories in the east that became part of the Third Reich 2 years ago, that's to say the Warthegau, and copies of this letter were sent to Heydrich and to Wilhelm Kopper, who was the high SS commander and police leader in the Warthegau. Now, from this, we know that in the Warthegau was the death camp at Helmo and Adnerum as from December 1941. But we also know that the Nazis started murdering people from villages in the region of Konin in September 1941. So I have said, I've done a video where I say that the first Jewish settlement to be destroyed was that of Kowo, but I made it clear it was destroyed by gas. There were those in the east which had been destroyed by shooting, and there were settlements in the region of Konin which were also the population was murdered. Probably by shooting, but it might have been by gas. It's not clear. Anyway, so what clearly the plan was, they wanted to ship the Jews off and probably ship them off to the Łódź ghetto. And Łódź is written L-O-D-Z in English because it's L, which doesn't exist, and it's not U, which doesn't exist in English. So on the 1st of October 1941, that was Yom Kippur. And that's the most important of the Jewish holidays. So Dr. Leo Beck, Philip Kotsova, and Marta Mossa, who were the members of the board of the Reich Association of Jews, were informed by the Berlin Gestapo that deportations were about to begin and instructed them to convert the Levetzowstrasse Synagogue into a collection camp which could hold around 1,000 people at any one time. For this purpose, they had to get rid of the seating in the main hall, and what they did was they got some straw from somewhere and they put that on the floor so at least it wouldn't be too uncomfortable to sleep on at night. And the Gestapo said that their idea with these transports was an apartment clearing operation. Now, Albert Speer, in 1939, he'd submitted plans for this great capital called Germania, and to build Germania, it necessitated the destroying of lots and lots of apartments. People were living in these apartments and they had to be housed somewhere else. Now, it's all very well coming up with the plans like this, but these people have to go somewhere else, and those places have to be built first. And so Speer himself came up with the idea of, well, why don't we kick the Jews out of their houses and let people who are being relocated from where this building place is, then we'll move them to these Jewish apartments. So Jewish-owned apartments. And what was happening to the Jews was not. He didn't say. Now, sort of stealing people's property from them may not be actually the same as murdering them, but to a large extent, there's not much real difference in it. If a person suddenly becomes homeless and doesn't have any resources to live, and because they can't work, then effectively it's the same as, well, very similar to killing the people. Now, these documents, I mean, that would have hanged Speer, I think. I think he was very close. He played a very clever game at Nuremberg, trying to show himself as being He was just a technocrat, a civil servant. He would have worked for anybody, and what he thought, but he himself, he came across really well as well. But if that document had turned up, then with his signature on it, asking about the deportations, how they're going, which he sent from Berchtesgaden, then I think I really think that would have gone differently for him. If you read the William Shirer's book on Berlin Diary, which I think is absolutely brilliant, it's one of my prime sources for anything, you'll see that there were the effects that the British so I'll go with that, Murray. The British air raids were having on the capital, and maybe it wasn't huge amount of damage, certainly not compared to what happened later, but there was some destruction, and William Shirer was wishing that there would be more and more of these bombing raids, because he could see the effect that they were actually having. And certainly as far as at the beginning, when they started happening, the bombing raids, then it did have a negative effect on morale for many people. Now, on the 4th of October 1941, SS Obergruppenführer Kurt de Luge, who was the chief of the uniformed police, he gave an order to deport 20,000 people, Jewish people, to Łódź. That be from the Reich and from the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. Now, how are these people at Łódź were going to be accommodated? I have no idea, but that wasn't their problem. They just send them off to Łódź. Now, the Łódź ghetto itself isn't all that big. Now, the Department of Jewish Affairs at the Berlin Gestapo was headed by somebody called SS Untersturmführer Gerhard Stübs, and his deputy was a criminal Oberinspector, so he was a policeman, Franz Püfer, and they were put in charge of organising the transports together with the Department of Jewish Affairs, which was in the Reich Security main office. And so in order to enable these deportations to run smoothly, the Jewish community employees were forced to compile transport lists and send out instructions telling people to report to the assembly camp being the synagogue. Now, attached to each deportation order was a detailed questionnaire regarding property still owned by the victim, and each deportee was allowed to take personal luggage weighing no more than 50 kilos and cash up to 100 Reichsmarks. Now, if you think of this under one way, it's not... it really is, it's awful that the community themselves must send the people that they know, the people that they've celebrated holidays with and worshipped with, and they've got to put them on these transport lists. But there is another point to this, is that they actually volunteered to actually collect people, because they thought it was better that some they knew tell them they're going to be deported and maybe help them with their luggage or something, rather than have a couple of yobs from the local SA turn up and do it for them, and which wouldn't be done in any ways. Now, so it was better that it was Jewish people doing it than these yobs or maybe Gestapo officers and what have you. But there are accounts of when even the Gestapo did it, when they would turn up and they would give the victims a few minutes to get ready and leave their homes, and to even help them with their luggage, which shows even people in the Gestapo didn't necessarily agree with what was actually happening. Now, usually when they rounded people up, there'd be trucks that would turn up, and the people would be put into the truck, and then the truck would take them to Levetzowstrasse Synagogue, and they would be collected there, and a train would be arranged to pick them up at the station. Then they'd walk to the station's only a couple of kilometers, and then the train would take them away. Now, thing is this though, at Levetzowstrasse Synagogue, they also checked the luggage, and this is noted for often being accompanied by violence. So you'd see what was in the luggage, and this was the chance of the inspectors to steal whatever they wanted. And not only that, they could force them to take their clothes off and look for anything they may have hidden on their bodies. And this must have been a dreadfully humiliating experience. And as a result, suicides were quite common. It's amongst Jewish people from Western countries, above all Germany, suicides were very common. In Poland, it's very unusual that Jews actually committed suicide. I can, off the top of my head, I can think of 2 or 3 examples where it happened, except for happening already in the death camps, where they actually chose to kill themselves rather than go through some horrific death. But when the ghettos, it's very unusual. So the Jewish community had also to look after the people whilst they were in the synagogue. So they had to arrange for food for them whilst they were there. Now, the first transport to the east was on the 18th of October 1941, and the 22nd was on the 26th of October 1942. So in the space of a year approximately, there was roughly one every 2 weeks. And so the length of time that people would stay in the synagogue might be from one day, but there were times when it could even be a couple of weeks. And so on the day of the deportation, they would walk the station, and sometimes even provided with transport, or might be a bit of both. They might make the young ones walk, and the elderly would give them a lorry or something like that. And there would have been a guard, but they were likely guarded. They weren't expected to actually run away. Now, when they were taken to the Grunewald station the first time, they had to walk through Berlin, and lots of people actually saw them. And so when they realized this sort of thing was actually happening, then they started doing things at night. But as they get to the Moabit freight station, it's really quite close. When there was a case of a long wait at the Levetzowstrasse Synagogue, what would happen would be that obviously the Jewish community had to make arrangements to feed everybody who was there, and but there was also wasn't exactly a Gestapo guards there or anything of that nature. So what they did do later, there was a synagogue in the old person's home in the Auanienburgerstrasse, and there the Gestapo actually did keep an eye on the people who were there all the time. And the Auanienburgerstrasse took over from the Levetzowstrasse as from October 1942. Now, in February 1943, there were cases where there were Jewish people who theoretically were protected, and they were working in factories. And at the end of February 1943, there was something called a factory action, where these people who were largely working in war-related industries, and they collected them from them. Now, just to think of the circumstances, the Nazis have suffered their biggest defeat so far in the war. At Stalingrad, it cost something like 6 months production was lost. And despite this, only less than 4 weeks after the surrender, they are now making their war potential even worse by rounding up people in order to kill them. So this is why I believe that the Holocaust, murdering the Jews, was more important than winning the war, in my opinion. I do accept the fact that you may say that there were resources that were put into the killing of the Jews. I don't think the resources themselves were comparatively all that great. I know these trains were running, but I don't know if these trains could actually be running in for example, in the Soviet Union, because of but the occupied Soviet Union. But certainly, in a case like this, when people are working, are being murdered. Or take the case of Lublin, which I mention all the time, is that the people who were working indirectly in agriculture, so they were the ones that would do the blacksmiths, the wheelwrights, the whatever, they were the ones doing this. Then suddenly the people can't produce food because they can't get the tractors fixed, or they can't get the horses shod, etc. Now, during the factory action, one of the things that happened as a result was the Rosenstrasse protest, where groups of people actually protested outside the building where the Jewish people were held. But these were normally people in mixed marriages, so it was the non-Jewish part of the family which was outside protesting. Not once was there any any form of protest at Levetzowstrasse, everybody there was deported. Nobody was released. At Rosenstrasse, there were cases where people were released. So around 20,000 people spent their last night in Berlin lying on the straw on the floor of the former synagogue, and they must have been utterly terrified about what was in store for them, particularly for the older people who really couldn't, had no chance of escape or doing anything. I would say, to me, the idea of going to this place in Łódź, whereas they were going into a place where the people were Jewish who were living there, but they were Polish Jewish, and this huge difference between Germans from Berlin to those in Łódź, even though it's not that far really, it's only about 500 kilometers away, but there's worlds and worlds apart, and this is clearly visible from the reactions of many people who actually were there, how they felt and how they were treated. It was comparatively relative security and comfort in Berlin, comparatively, to what the state of this massive overcrowding, a lack of everything in Łódź, the cold, the lack of water, the food, everything, which was pretty horrific. Now from Berlin, we've got a large amount of the deportation cards. We've got the names of the people, you can see them. These things have survived. Indeed, a lot of them are actually even online. So that's it really, I suppose. I think that's my presentation on this. Now have a look at some of your points that you've just made. I'll put this over here and bring this down here. So hello Craig, hello David, hello Retrowave. Retrowave wants the name of the book. I haven't written a book, Retrowave. I started writing a book on the death camp at Helmel nad Nerem. I started doing that in 2007, never finished it. There's now a one which is far better than I would have written, so you could have a look at that one. But as far as the deportations from Berlin, I can't actually say anything. Anyway, so Murray says, Alan, what is unique about your videos? It's like a fireside chat, like you are sitting in a room with your audience. Unique USP, very. Oh, thank you very much. Didn't think of that one. What I would like actually is if people could actually speak and ask questions back. I don't know how to do that. Well, YouTube hasn't got that, but I think in time we might be able to get something like that. That would be nice. Thanks, David. And Retrowave says, I see similar things happen in several parts of the world where to sustain a level of economic growth, the nation needs free resources and free production. Okay, and hello Steve, and hello Daniel. I've had this interest in the Holocaust now for many years. I think that one of the things I keep finding these things which I find utterly shocking and frightening, and these things all the time is it's this nightmare of what was actually happening. If you think of this, so these people here, 1941, October 41, they're sent off to the Łódź ghetto. I mean, some of them were sent off to places like Riga or Kovno, and they were murdered there on arrival. And by shooting. I mean, just that how the way that happened must, utterly terrifying, the way that these things were done. Another thing which is, I think, worth pointing out is that they started doing this October 1941 because they thought they'd won the war, when they clearly haven't. Actually, this isn't for me, because Sic Semper Fi has asked David if he's read Mein Kampf. I don't know if David's read it. I've read it, and indeed yesterday I quoted it in some length, and today I actually also read a bit of it as well when I was Mein Kampf. I think, I mean, it's divided in two parts. The first part is Hitler talks about his life, And so there are some things in this which I think are interesting, such as when he describes his how he was living in the army. But a lot of this has been written from the point of view as a propaganda book. The second part was about pseudo-economics and pseudo, and I mean that's why pseudo politics is just nonsensical. But the problem is, yesterday, for example, I went into a very long quote of how he described the Coburg, and today I looked at the time he was in Pasewalk, and it's next to nothing in comparison. So basically, Hitler is just thinking of the way the book. It's a work of the autobiographical bit is largely a work of fiction. Although with some things in it which are correct. Anyway, let's have a look at yesterday's questions. And sorry, just answer this one. You know a fact that anti-Semitism was pervasive for centuries in Europe and the Empire. Yes, anti-Semitism did exist, but you've got to look at who started it. And this was part of the Christian church. It's done this for a reason, because you needed somebody, to blame for the things which went wrong. So, for example, there was a plague, well, we'll blame the Jews. Or something that's going wrong, we'll blame the Jews. Jews were convenient as somebody could steal from. The Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church in Russia didn't allow usury, lending money with interest. And so the only people could do that with Jews. And when it comes time to paying it back, nobody wants to pay it back. That's why people complain to the banks these days, usually. And so it's this is the reason for anti-Semitism. It's because if in the New Testament some other group had been attacked, then well, in fact, not even that. Jesus himself was Jewish. I mean, he was crucified by the Romans. I mean, I suppose they really should have turned on the Italians more than anything else, but the Italians weren't living everywhere as the Jews were. So that's the reason, I think. Anyway, just look at yesterday's questions, because there's a couple of it here. One interesting. And so Teague says, thanks, enlightening, and puts the puzzle to bit. Oh, John writes something here. I thought your live feeds were 12 noon Pacific Coast time, and apparently it's 11 a.m. What I do is always at the same time, but the United States doesn't change the hour at the same time as we do here in Europe. In Europe, it's been at the same time now for, I don't know, 35 years. I remember in the 80s where Britain used to change time differently than other countries, but since around 35 years, something like that, we change time. Every country changes time at the same time. So, but I always do it at 2000 hours, 8 o'clock in the afternoon, evening, my time, which is the time in Germany or in Poland. Okay, and anyway, so John also writes, I'd like to hear more about Karl Haushofer, who tutored Hitler and Hess on geopolitics while they were in prison for the beer hall putsch. Yeah, I find Haushofer's ideas a bit weird. I don't actually know enough about them. I don't feel confident about doing some talk on his ideas. So if I ever feel confident, I'll do it, but I don't think that day is going to arrive. So Frankie writes, I was born and raised in Coburg, a beautiful city and really diverse nowadays. Yes, Coburg is outstanding. In fact, they should put me on their tourist board, because that's, I think. And Safia says, I had same luck getting back my power washer, books, tools, albums, CDs, all the same fate. Oh, okay, right. So Safia obviously lent property to somebody and didn't get it back. Now, James writes this one here, and this is something others can actually give the answer to. I was thinking how the Nazis, I think a Nazi means a non-conformist, were perceived to others it might be non-Christians. Sorry, just thought of that. Anyway, I was thinking how the Nazis were perceived to others living in Germany during the earlier times, and when the veil began to be removed as to the evilness to come. Would you say Night of the Long Knives or Kristallnacht was the turning point. As we say in the USA, please offer your 2 cents. Right, I don't think either of them was the turning point. Indeed, I think that I can't make my mind up when the turning point was, but I've got to go a lot earlier than that. There are 2 things that happened in February 1933, and I think it could be either one or the other. The first one was on the 7th of February 1933, when a decree was pulled out of the drawer, as they was called it in German, which severely limited the rights. And this was originally intended, it was a law prepared by the Brüning government, and it was the Schleicher government, and it was designed to actually control the communists, and Nazis used it to actually control everybody and to curtail rights. But I think the Reichstag fire decree of the 27th of February 1933 really put the nail in the coffin, because after the Reichstag fire decree, there was no turning back. There were the elections of March 1933, 5th of March 1933, which were totally unfair, because the police and the SA were working together, with Hermann Goering in charge of the police in Prussia, which made up 2/3 approximately of pre-war Germany. By the time that had happened, the writing was on the wall, and I think there was no turning back. The only way that something could have turned back and was the role of the president. If the president hadn't been old and senile, then maybe something could have been done. I think the president was in the summer of 1934 was on the verge of declaring martial law, and the army, I think, would have done what he said. Blomberg certainly appeared that way, and with notwithstanding that, by the time that the Hindenburg died, August 1934, it was over. So as far as I'm concerned, the turning point was the Reichstag fire decree, and that's it. No, he wasn't that old. He wasn't. Hindenburg's 90 plus. No, he was 87, and well, not much difference. I agree. No, my mother's older than that, and she's quite normal. In fact, she's here now. Don't think she'd be able to run the country, but anyway. So good. So thanks very much for being here today. Tomorrow I shall what am I going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow there's a video on the first execution in the Third Reich, and the day was near 90 plus, yes. And on Sunday, if I can, I'll do something. Well, depends. I'll be in Germany. I think that my boss for my normal job will have something lined up for me to do. So so I don't think I'll be able to, but if I can, I'll do it. I may be able to do something on Monday of next week, but I don't know yet. Right, 6 need a lesson on the 1935 Nuremberg laws. Yeah, it's a good subject, that one. And the thing about Nuremberg laws is it's the way it actually happened. It's not, again, it's something, it came about quite even accidentally. It was something we just thought of at the last moment. Okay, thank you. Oh, Daniel's got some pasta cooking. Okay, thanks for being here. Thank you, and so bye for now.